all of this again for two people over 60 who are sitting in front of the Department of Justice. Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's and Jody Evans, co-founder of Code Pink. Medea Benjamin was also there, but I didn't get a chance to speak with her on camera. But getting arrested in front of the Justice Department in order to they're protesting the treatment of Julian Assange. And, obviously there's quite a segue here, right? Tara Reid is in Russia fleeing what she feels is U.S. persecution, what she's heard, what she's been told is U.S. persecution, because she very well could end up in a kangaroo court situation, locked up the way Julian Assange has. So Julian Assange has shown what the U.S. is capable of. They're capable of locking up one of the best publishers and journalists this world has ever seen, literally never publishing anything wrong, anything incorrect, anything retractable in the entire history of Wikileaks. They can lock him up and torture him basically for 11 years now, and with impunity. They act like there's no reason they should have to answer for it. So that is why Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's and Jody Evans, of co-founder of Code Pink. Code Pink, of course, the excellent anti-war organization that's been around for years and years. One of the few anti-war organizations that is always there and in your face and demanding a stop to it all. But so I'm going to show this clip. This is my footage again. I was there. Part of it, I'll let you know what it is. A part of it, I asked some questions of Ben. And I'm going to, play it for you and occasionally interrupt far too much, as I'm known to do, and say things as we go. It's 8 minutes long, but, with interruptions, it'll last longer. But this is just the other day.
That wants to show us the cost of war, so we are enraged to work for peace.
By the way, the audio, so there's a huge crowd of people there. Luckily, there was a bunch of reporters, and I am in them trying to get my camera as close as possible with a shotgun mic and all that stuff. However, the audio is still rather low, and I tried to filter out background noise. I'm hoping you guys can hear it enough that it's feasible. If it really is impossible to hear anything, then let me know that, because that would be silly to show you something you can't hear at all. But hopefully it's not impossible.
Instead, the costs of war are denied us. Instead, he's imprisoned and silenced. We cannot silence the truth. Just since the collateral murder video, $20 trillion of U.S. taxpayer money has been used on weapons and violence and war. And it comes home to the streets. When you put someone in solitary confinement, that is torture. That is torture by the UN.
She just mentioned a second ago, she just mentioned the $20 trillion that has been spent just since the global war on terror began. And that is $20 trillion, not counting the 21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments that have been found in the Pentagon books. It's actually over that now. It's closer to 35 trillion that has been unaccounted for adjustments in the Pentagon's books. So she's talking about just the, we actually are admitting we spent this money stuff coming out of the Pentagon. Just the stuff they're like, yeah, that happened. Just that stuff is $20 trillion since the global war on terror began. For those of you who missed it, this is Jody Evans, the co-founder of Code Pink.
As Ben said, when you do that, you silence others. What does that say to our children? What does that say to the children that we put people in jail for telling the truth?
That's Ben on the ground. In a moment, he turns around.
Telling the truth, and it's not just 4 years in solitary confinement. It's 10 years confined for telling the truth.
I want to go into the Department of Justice and talk to them about how they're criminalizing free speech and freedom of the press. It's not the Department of Justice if they're criminalizing freedom of the press.
And by the way, notice the sheer number of cops that were required to deal with two people sitting gently, sitting unharmed, an old man and a woman in all pink and a sun hat, sitting in the doorway of the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. And it took this phalanx of cops with their guns and their badges and their, small penises all standing around. And then there are actually more that maybe there's a shot of them, but there are more off to the right that are slowly amassing to deal with the situation. They had on, those were the DHS looking a little more like SWAT team with Kevlar and bulletproof vests, and they had an extra 4 Big Macs for breakfast that morning just to be ready for this. And you'll see some of them in a moment.
It is kind of hard to believe that it was the Obama-Biden administration that decided not to prosecute Assange.
He just said, in case you couldn't hear it, he just said, it is surprising to know that it was the Obama-Biden administration that chose not to indict Assange. And he means surprising because they are so horrible, and they were so horrible on whistleblowers, that it's surprising they didn't indict Assange back under Obama. But they didn't. They chose not to.
Trump decided to indict him, which was precedent-shattering. And now Biden is following in Trump's direction of this war on truth, war on the press, and at the same time saying that journalism is not a crime. I just feel like the Department of Justice is acting in an unjust fashion, prosecuting a publisher for publishing the truth. I mean, what could be more basic than that?
By the way, it's possible he could have gotten more media attention by just telling everyone he's Bernie Sanders. I mean, could he? I feel like it probably would have had quite an impact if he just said that he's Bernie Sanders. But yeah. But Bernie Sanders didn't get arrested in front of the Justice Department for protesting Assange, the treatment of Assange.
I don't know why they won't let me through, but they won't. I mean, Assange is not even a U.S. citizen, and it's the U.S. that's prosecuting him. I mean, if this stands, if the U.S. is allowed to continue this prosecution, the precedent that it sets is that the U.S. can arrest any journalist of any nationality in any country around the world if they print something that the U.S. doesn't like. I mean, that is exactly the opposite of freedom of the press. And you can't...
Jody Evans brings in a pink smoke bomb. They're code pink, right? So everything they do is pink. Brings in a pink smoke bomb that just goes everywhere. And it was interesting to see how the cops dealt with it. The ones in the white shirts with the Justice Department didn't seem to care at all. The DHS guy, you'll see in a moment, comes running in. Well, he can't really run at his size, but comes waddling in and pushes the smoke bomb out of the way. But
I haven't seen any suggestion. There it is, going up in smoke. Freedom of the press.
Back up.
Bless you. In solitary.
So that was the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, who ends up being in charge of arresting them. And you'll see later he comes over and tells them that he's going to be arresting them soon.
For 4 years, because of his efforts to let me know what my government is doing in my name and with my money.
And the reason he says he's been tortured in solitary confinement for 4 years is that's the number of years he's been in Belmarsh prison. Assange has But if you add on the 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, trapped in basically 2 rooms in the Ecuadorian embassy, it really is 11 years that Assange has not been free.
So yeah, if Julian can be willing to go to jail, to support him and to support our right to freedom of the press, which has gone up in smoke. The press, should the press be able to print uncomfortable truths with which the government is uncomfortable? They would all say yes.
That's Medea Benjamin, the other co-founder of Code Pink. And you'll notice this guy over in the corner. There were also a few people like this that I don't know who they're with, Secret Service or something, but they just stand there like hitmen off to the side with earpieces in, and you have no idea what they might do or who they might do it to. But all of this, again, for 2 people over 60 who are sitting in front of the Department of Justice. You have, 3 different departments of police. You have unmarked police. You have guys with bulletproof vests on. All of this for people asking to meet with someone from the Justice Department about Julian Assange.
And I hope that it'll inspire other people to do as much as they can.
You need to remove yourself from this area and remove yourself from the account. Is that clear? Okay.
It's clear.
Okay.
I will remain here to protest the Department of Justice acting in
Talk about how much. So that's me asking a question now. Julian Assange got wrong in all of his reporting.
0. Everything that Wikileaks has ever published has been absolutely the truth. It's more than you could say for most other mainstream publications.
And when he began reporting, what did other mainstream publications think of it at the beginning?
At the beginning, the mainstream publications, Julian partnered with mainstream publications in terms of releasing the files. He was very diligent about making sure that any particular personal information that would be harmful to people would be redacted. And he worked with these other mainstream media to do that. Essentially what Obama said was he's not going to prosecute WikiLeaks and Assange because of the New York Times problem. Because if he prosecuted WikiLeaks and Assange, he'd have to prosecute the New York Times because they printed the same stuff.
Now that we know that Pompeo and the CIA had plans to kill or assassinate Assange, do you feel he'd get a fair trial here in the U.S.?
No, I don't think there's any chance that Assange would get a fair trial here in the U.S.
Because here we are, inside the belly of the beast, the empire, and its violence. And when they understand that when you don't have freedom of the press and no one's telling the truth, it weaponizes your capacity to feel, to have compassion and empathy, because if you don't have the full story, and if your heart is being manipulated with lies, then we're all lost. How can we have peace in the world if we're just drowning in lies? So I think people in the world understand that, know the value of it, know this is a critical moment. They understand how critical this moment is. That you could have a publisher publish the truth and be tortured. That's a moment of pivot that we should all be very seriously looking at and standing up against.
It was Julian himself who said that if wars can be started by lies, then peace can be started by truth.
Yeah, one of Julian's most famous quotes: if wars can be started by lies, then peace can be started by truth. And, you see it again and again. Those of us who are actually calling for peace in a variety of wars, but, to begin with the proxy war in Ukraine, those of us who are calling for peace are the ones who are willing to relay the truth and willing to report on the reality and call for peace. those who want to say, no, more war, send weapons, don't sit down at a peace table. Those are the ones that put forward the propaganda and the lies in order to keep. It's not easy to get people to want war. It actually takes a fair amount of propaganda, manufacturing of consent. And our mainstream media, trillions of dollars goes into it to try and make sure people support killing in their name that goes on. Obviously, proxy war in Ukraine is just one example, but you have Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Palestine. There's a long list where the United States, Americans have to be propagandized on just a boom, boom, boom basis, just every day, straight to the face holes, just constantly, in order to get them to support this endless killing. It's not easy. And a lot of people are waking up to it. A lot of people are turning away. A lot of people are going, that's the thing is, the truth. The other thing is, it takes loads of propaganda to get people to support this garbage. It takes just a few minutes of truth to get people to start questioning it. And as Ben said in this video, he hopes his arrest and others like him inspire a lot of people to stand up for Julian Assange, but for so many victims of the U.S. empire.
All these politicians wrap themselves in the flag, say how much they care about freedom of the press. Biden talking about journalism is not a crime. He needs to be held to account. People need to say, you're saying the words, but it's bullshit because you're in the process of prosecuting this truth-telling publisher. You can kind of understand why the government doesn't like it when people print the truth. I mean, the government is doing things that are against the law, and they don't want people to know about it. So, of course, they want to prosecute a truth-telling publisher. But we, as the governed, and my understanding is that it is government by consent of the governed, we want to know the truth. That's not so bad. And let the chips fall where they may.
All right, very good. So this is your all third and final warning. And I understand that you're not going to wish to reply.
Julian Assange.
Okay.
So here's what ended up happening and why I don't have footage of the actual arrest is, so that guy came over, the big Darth Vader guy came over and said, this is your final warning. We'll be arresting you in a few minutes. They said, we understand. He then walked away. Right then, as if an act of the many gods, crazy thunder, lightning, rainstorm begins. Just buckets of water started coming down. At first I thought, and I had someone else, it was not even mine, someone else's camera that, expensive camera to film this. And at first I stood under an umbrella with somebody, didn't even have my own umbrella. First I stood under an umbrella with somebody. And then I was like, I'm actually going to get this camera is actually going to die. And they're going to be, is going to get ruined. And they're going to be arrested soon. And I actually also had to leave DC for other reasons I was already late. So because it was pouring and because I had nothing to cover the camera with, I did not get their actual arrest, unfortunately, on film, which happened not long after. But I did hear that they were released within roughly 3 hours of being arrested. Obviously, they have to appear back for other court appearances. So that's not the end of it for them. But I wanted to show you the footage. I wanted to show you what happened. I wanted to show you why they're willing to risk arrest and put their bodies on the line to stand up for Julian Assange as he continues to be persecuted. And the persecution has not ended. It is ongoing. In fact, the efforts to bolster the U.S.'s bullshit case against Julian Assange continue as well. There was a Rolling Stone article the other day from a journalist, a British journalist, saying that he has been contacted and harassed on multiple occasions over the past year by the FBI, trying to get him to give statements and testimony against Julian Assange because he had worked with Julian Assange back when they had worked on a Guardian article together or something like that. And it shows that the FBI, the guy refused to give the FBI anything, but it shows that the FBI is continuing to this day to run around and pressure and harass people who knew or worked with Julian Assange in order to try and add to their case to extradite him so that he can be tortured in the United States for the rest of his life. They are still doing that right now. So the U.S. is not showing any signs of backing off of this. Now, I know I brought you some slight words of optimism with a few months ago with the Australian Prime Minister saying that he was speaking to Biden about how Julian Assange should be freed and about how he's an Australian citizen. But apparently that so far has really come to naught, has not really changed anything.